Structure of cells. What are cells? Cells are the most basic unit of life. All living things are made of cells. The cell theory consists of three main parts. 1. All living things are made of cells. 2. Cells are the basic unit of life. And 3. Cells come from pre-existing cells. Spontaneous generation was the idea that living things could come from non-living things. For example, it was thought that sweat produced armpit bacteria. Spontaneous generation was proven wrong by a scientist named Louis Pasteur. He boiled meat broth in a flask and bent the neck of the flask into an S shape so that air could enter the flask, but bacteria or any other tiny organisms could not. And by the end of this experiment, nothing grew out of the broth. However, when Pasteur removed the neck of the flask so that something could enter, the broth rapidly became cloudy with life, proving that living things could only come from living things. There are two types of cells, unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular are organisms made of one cell, like bacteria, for example. Multicellular are organisms made of more than one cell, like plants, for example. Cells carry out the basic functions of living things. This means that cells perform the tasks that help a living thing stay alive. For example, reproducing themselves, removing waste, adapting to change, maintaining homeostasis, and obtaining, storing, and transferring matter and energy. A cell is composed of a group of connected parts that work together to accomplish these functions of the cell. In an organism, each cell is a system that works together. Maintaining homeostasis means having a constant internal environment. Each cell must maintain homeostasis in order to stay alive. For example, when we're hot, the body produces sweat. This sweat keeps the body from overheating. In other words, sweat regulates our internal temperatures on hot days. Cells move materials in and out of pores. Pores are small openings on a surface in which materials can pass through. The amount of material that can move in and out of a cell is limited by the number of pores in the membrane. The number of pores is determined by the surface of the cell. More surface area equals more pores. Small cells have a greater surface to volume ratio. They can move more materials in and out of cells and are thus better than the bigger cells. The ideal size of a cell depends on its function. Different cells come in different shapes and sizes. Prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are one-celled organisms that do not have membrane-enclosed organelles, bacteria, for example. Eukaryotes are organisms consisting of more than one cell, including membrane-enclosed organelles. Organelles are specialized structures in cells that perform specific functions. Some organelles include cytoplasm, cell membrane, cytoskeleton, DNA, and ribosomes. These 5 organelles are both included in eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. The cytoplasm includes all the materials inside the cell and out of the nucleus. Cell membrane is a double layer of phospholipids with proteins that surround the cell and control the movement of materials to and from its outer environment. Cytoskeleton is a structure made from fibrous proteins that give the cell structure and support. DNA, which stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, is the chemical blueprint for all living things. Ribosomes are an organelle that's inside a cell that is the site of protein production. Organelles in eukaryotes include the mitochondria, nucleus, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and rough endoplasmic reticulum. A mitochondria is a membrane-enclosed organelle that is the main site of energy production. It's also known as the mighty mitochondria, or the powerhouse of the cell. The nucleus controls and regulates activities of the cell and carries the genes. It's also known as the brain of the cell. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum, SER for short, is an organelle of the cell that is the site of lipid production and carbohydrate breakdown. Rough endoplasmic reticulum, RER for short, is an organelle of a cell that is the site of final protein processing. More organelles in eukaryotes include the Golgi Apparatus, the vesicle, and lysosomes. The Golgi Apparatus is a membrane-enclosed organelle that sorts and packages proteins in the vesicles for transport from specific parts of the cell to other cells. A vesicle is a sac that carries materials within a cell to another cell. Lysosome is a membrane-enclosed sac containing enzymes that break down proteins and carbohydrates and fats. Thank you for listening.